right. Hi YouTube. So I am making this video because I think that a lot of people are wrong about Aloy. I've watched several theory crafting videos. I have watched a lot of different people voice their opinion on like what weapons are best, what team comps will go well with her, and this, that, and all the other. Um, and I think a lot of them are wrong. Now you may be asking, what makes me different from all the theory crafters, and what makes me different from every other person who's talking about Aloy? Well, I think it's rather simple, and that is the fact that I have actually played the unit. I'm a PlayStation 5 player. I've had Aloy for about a week. I've tried her out with multiple different team comps. I've tried her out with multiple characters, different weapons, things like that. Um, and I have opinions. So let's talk about it. So, flipping over here, you're gonna see that I have my Aloy. A couple things to note when I say that I have played this unit. My Aloy is level 90. I was very stoked for Aloy. I took her to level 90 day one. I have been invested into my Aloy. Number two, my talents. I have her talents at 886 right now. All of my Senora drops that I have gotten the last 2 weeks have gone into Aloy, where most other people have pumped theirs into Raiden Shogun. And so I've gotten her in kind of the upper tiers where most people would take her, maybe even a little further. And I've messed around with her, and I've played around with her in a lot of different comps. I've tried her with a couple level 90 weapons. I've tried her with the Stringless, I've tried her with the Hamayumi, and I've tried her with the Rust. From the free-to-play perspective, I'm not free-to-play, but from a free-to-play perspective, Hamayumi is the most easily attained bow, as well as I actually think it outperforms the Rust. And I think from the 4 stars, it's actually her best weapon. And so a lot of the showcase that we're going to be doing today, a lot of the talking, I'm going to be doing it with the Hamayumi on. So this is the party that I'm using with her right now. There can easily be some changes in this party. I think you could trade out Kazuha for Sucrose very easily, and you could trade out Eula for pretty much any cryo character. You could even do a Nemo Traveler instead of Kazuha. But a Nemo character is fairly important. I have Child in here because everything in Aloy's kit revolves around stacking onto her normal and charged attacks. Everything comes into this base talent, the normal attack. So having the increase from Child is actually going to be a fairly significant increase to your damage, especially if you don't want to crown her. If that's not your cup of tea. I plan to crown her because I love the character. But if you're wanting to etch out that extra damage, Child is really good, as well as artifacts I'm running her with are a 4-piece Blizzard Strayer, and she is going to get an additional 20% crit rate if the opponent is frozen. So having a Hydro character on the team is actually a nice thing. So Child kind of fits both of those requirements. Now, one thing to note in her attributes, so you can see here, I have 23% crit rate, but note for my Blizzard Strayer set, similar to Ganyu, you don't need a ton of crit rate because I'm going to get 15% from having double cryo in the party, so that puts me close to 40. I'm going to get 20 for having them affected by cryo, so that puts me close to 60. And then if they're frozen, I'm going to have another 20, so that's close to 80. So you don't need a lot of crit rate with her. But this is a pretty realistic build. It's not crazy good stats, but it's 175% crit damage. I have 2,000 attack on her. But one thing to note is she scales off cryo damage. So I have a cryo damage cup on her, and I'm getting about 90% of my damage as cryo damage. So before we mess with those enemies, uh, let's talk about how her kit actually works. So you have your regular attacks. Uh, your charge shot does cryo, and your normal attack performs up to 4 consecutive attacks with a bow. Very standard bow user, nothing too special. Now, when we look at her talent info for her E, Frozen Wilds, Aloy throws a bomb in the targeted direction that explodes on impact, dealing cryo damage. After it explodes, the freeze bomb will split up into mini chill water bomblets that explode on contact with opponents or after a short delay, dealing cryo damage. When a freeze bomb or chill water bomblet hits an opponent, the opponent's attack is decreased and Aloy receives 1 coil stack. Aloy can gain up to 1 coil stack every 0.1 seconds. Now that's very important, that 0.1 seconds. We're going to come back to that. We're going to talk about that. So each stack increases Aloy's normal attack damage. When Aloy has 3 coil stacks, all stacks of coils are cleared. She then enters the rushing ice state, which further increases the damage dealt by her normal attacks and converts her normal attack damage to cryo damage. While in the rushing ice state, Aloy cannot obtain new coil stacks. Coil effects will be cleared 30 seconds after Aloy leaves the field. So you can see in here, when I have it at 8, for the coil attack damage bonus, at 1 coil, we're getting 8.6 attack. At 2 coils, we're getting 17.2 attack. And 3 coils, we're getting 25.8 attack. And then in her rushing ice state, which lasts for 10 seconds, you're getting 43.1%. So obviously you want to get to that rushing ice state. That is when she's going to be doing the most damage, and that is the goal, is to get to the rushing ice state. Then when you get her leveled up, another thing to take note is she has these 2 passive talents. So Combat Override, when Aloy receives a coil effect from Frozen Wilds, her attack is increased by 16%, while nearby party members' attack is increased by 8%. And then you've got Strong Strike, which is another passive. When Aloy is in the rushing ice state conferred by Frozen Wilds, her cryo damage bonus increases by 3.5% every 1 second for a maximum of 35%. So she's in the rushing ice state for 10 seconds. The longer you're in that state, she is slowly going to get stronger because all of her attacks are going to have cryo on them. And then her burst is literally just a big burst. It's just a burst of AoE cryo damage. The longer you wait to use her burst, like towards the end of her kit, if you wait that full 10 seconds, you're going to get a 35% damage bonus onto her burst. So it's advantageous to wait until the end of your rotation. Do as many normal attacks as you can. That being said, Hamayumi, which I was talking about earlier, I think it's her best weapon, doubles its damage bonus as long as you have 100% energy. So Hamayumi can actually work really well with her, considering the fact that you are holding her burst into the last second and you're maximizing your double damage on everything. Looking at her kit, you would think, oh, so she does a lot of auto attacks. You want to get into her rushing ice state as fast as possible, and you would never use her charged attack. So let's actually do some stuff with her kit.
Ever seen one of these?
So that's her E. You throw that bomb. That initial bomb will do damage, and all of these little bombs will do damage. You can suck these bombs up with Anemo characters. You can't suck them up with Venti, similar to Klee's bombs. I know that sucks. I'm not here to argue for that. I think it's a bad decision. Now, the thing about picking them up is it seems like an easy way to get the rushing ice state, when in actuality, it only works about half the time. I've played this character for a week. It only works about half the time. And the reason it only works about half the time, we talked about this earlier, is because the last sentence in the opening paragraph of this, Aloy can gain a coil stack every 0.1 seconds. If you gain these coil stacks too fast, if your bombs hit an enemy too fast, you will not get all 4 coil stacks. You will be stuck at 2 or at 3. It happens all the time. So now I'm stuck at 3. Did y'all see that? See, so I'm stuck at 3. Oh, see, I'm stuck at 3 again. The thing about that happening all the time is why I think Aloy's charged hit should not be overlooked. So a couple things about her charged hit. Obviously, it's going to be great to throw cryo on right at the beginning. So I got 4 that time. So I'm going to want to sit here and auto attack. And her auto attacks do a decent chunk of damage. But once again, that's only going to last 10 seconds. And now you've got all this cryo damage that you can't use. You've got all this cryo damage that you can't use. Whereas if you're pulling her charged attacks out, cool, I'm hitting 12k. I'm hitting 12k consistently. That's without any coils. My coils have already worn off. But especially where they have the chance to not crit. Note, she doesn't have cryo on her anymore. So I'm not critting as much. Whereas if I'm doing charged attacks, I'm consistently applying cryo. So having 3 stacks is still going to increase the damage of your normal attacks and make them fairly strong. However, if you get stuck with 2, you're still sitting there in a position, 2 or 3, you're sitting there in a position where you're not getting any of your cryo damage boost. So that 0.1 seconds can actually be fairly detrimental to just constantly having your stacks up. She is not like a just hit your E and you instantly have the cryo boost. Whereas like Yoimiya, for example, you hit E and you instantly have that pyro boost. She is not as cut and dry as Yoimiya is. If you miss those stacks, the cooldown on this ability is 20 seconds. So you can either switch to another character, one of your sub DPS, do some bursts or stuff like that while you're waiting for this cooldown to finish, or you can use her charged attacks and get that extra DPS. That being said, in talking about the valuableness of her charged attacks, that is why I think the Hamayumi is better than the Rust, because the Rust will actually decrease the damage that you're doing on your charged attacks by 10%, where the Hamayumi is going to give you a 48% boost to your charged attacks. In actual practice, getting to the 4 coil stacks is harder than it sounds. And taking her charged attack out of her kit does take out a lot of her damage. To sum up, I guess, the biggest mistakes that I see people saying with Aloy is that her charged attacks are worthless. Because they say charged attacks are worthless, they give her the Rust. Now, as for team comps, I actually think if you want to optimize her, you should be running a Hydro so that you can get freeze procs. I think a Hydro is important. I think Child is a great choice if you have him. I know not everyone has him. I know looking at this party, you see nothing but 5 stars and say, oh, so Aloy is worthless. You can easily replace Child with Xingqiu. I think Xingqiu is a phenomenal option because then you're going to have constant freeze with Xingqiu's ult. I think Xingqiu is a fantastic option in here. You can replace Kazuha with Sucrose or a Nemo Traveler. A Nemo Traveler is someone everyone has, and I think is a fantastic option. If you don't want to run Hydro, if you don't want to do freeze, say you just have enough crit rate by affecting them with cryo and having another person in there, I think another great option is actually to have an Electro in the party. I think Fischl is a great option. I think Beidou is a great option. And the reason I say this is actually going back to the idea that we are not always going to have 4 stacks. So say you are in a situation where you just say, no, I want to use the rust. I never want to charge shot. I never want to have to worry about that. So if that is what you are going to do, I recommend putting an Electro in the party. Let's find some enemies so I can show you why. Okay, we got some samurai. Okay, so the reason why I would say let's put an Electro in the team, especially Fischl is great, is you're going to come out here, you're going to pull Fischl out, you're going to put your ice on. If you get your 4 stacks, great. If you don't get your 4 stacks, they're now all going to be superconducted. So now I'm at 3. Having these enemies on superconduct is going to get a decent amount of additional damage. Those are my thoughts on Aloy. I think she's a very fun character. She does have a lot of damage potential. I think you can run her in a lot of team comps, whether it's as a sub DPS or as a main DPS. Learn how to work with her bomb placement. If you're worried about getting that bomb placement, the Hamayumi is a great weapon for her, and you'll just use her charged attacks a little more often. But I think that don't discount her charge shots. There are lots of situations where they are valuable, and you're going to get a lot of damage out of them. So those are kind of my thoughts that I've gotten from playing Aloy for a week. I've yet to try her as like a major burst character with like a Bennett Sucrose Mona comp. But just playing her as a main DPS, those are my thoughts. I think there's a lot of people who discount some things about her and may not necessarily understand about her gameplay, which is why I made this video. I hope it helped if you already have Aloy and you're trying to fully understand her, or if you're looking forward to Aloy as a PC or mobile player in patch 2.2. Other than that, thanks for watching.